Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match. Novak Djokovic versus Stan Wawrinka, Wimbledon 2023 third round. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. Straight set win for Novak Djokovic in this nostalgic throwback matchup. And for the first time, Djokovic and Stan play at Wimbledon, which, nice. You know, I feel like it's been a great rivalry. It's given us some epic battles, and I think Wawrinka is happy that they ultimately did play on center court at Wimbledon, and it was something nice for the fans in the third round. But with that said, it was an expected outcome of Novak breezing through the first two sets, having trouble with the third. That set went to a tiebreak, and Novak won yet another tiebreak. I said it was an expected outcome, just given the direction of these two players' careers. Djokovic maintaining his stature at the very, very top, and Wawrinka, after double knee surgery, is hanging in there and is still dangerous, especially in the first couple rounds of tournaments, but obviously he has declined significantly. Not to mention, I do think that if Wawrinka played Novak, even in his prime, on grass, he never would have beaten him. Stan has... Everything is relative. I mean, some players would look at Stan's Wimbledon resume and they'd be like, that's great. I love that. But for Wawrinka, he's done far better at the other three slams, made a couple of quarterfinals at Wimbledon, and that's the best he's ever done. However, despite the match being somewhat straightforward, it did get me to think about some interesting dynamics in their rivalry, and I hope that these things will be interesting to you as they were interesting for me to just simply think about and watch play out on the court. That is to first answer the question, why was Stan a tough matchup for Novak Djokovic? And I think it ultimately comes down to rhythm and contact points. And Djokovic, for all of the strengths in his game, especially when he was younger and relied more on his fitness and his consistency, he was not quite as disruptive as, let's say, Federer and Nadal when it came to extreme mixing up of angles, spins, trajectories of the ball, paces. For Novak, there was just a little bit more sameness. And I think that played into Stan enjoying that matchup more than playing Federer, playing Nadal. It comes down to disrupting Wawrinka's contact points and bothering his timing. And I think when Stan played Novak and he was getting the similar balls a lot, he could key in on his timing and strike the ball from comfortable contact points again and again. And that's where his power begins to overwhelm. Whereas I think when you mix in things like drop shot, slice, big serving, extreme angles that challenge him to play from outside the single sidelines, a lot of height, heavy topspin, lots of height, off-pace balls. When you kind of throw the kitchen sink at him, you're not going to play him into rhythm as much. You're going to keep his power at bay because he's not going to get quite as confident and quite as comfortable taking the massive cuts that he wants to take. But as I was watching Djokovic, 36-year-old Djokovic, play Wawrinka, I thought to myself, you know what? This version of Novak maybe would have had a better shot against Stan back then. The things that he's doing is more disruptive. There's far more slice in Djokovic's game, far more drop shots. I mean, night and day when it comes to especially the backhand drop shot that he started playing so much in 2018, really. There's more net approaches from Novak, and there's better serving. Remember, it's not just about variety. One way to disrupt rhythm is to avoid those neutral rallies by hitting better first serves, which he certainly did in the first and the second set of this match. So Novak is more of a disruptor now than he used to be. He's adapted his game in that way. And, maybe it didn't matter in this match, but it just got me thinking and coming to the conclusion that Djokovic's main issue against Wawrinka back then, where he would kind of be a matchup that allowed Stan to reach this God mode, right? It wasn't that Novak played bad in that match. It's just that Wawrinka played so well. And that's why we got this incredible quality and some of the most entertaining matches that I've ever seen. It's because Novak couldn't make Stan play worse. And, the way to do that is to do a little bit more disruption. Now, this was also an illustration of Djokovic's preserved movement in comparison to a normal human. Stan Wawrinka is a normal human, and his physicality is nothing close to really what it was in those prime years. In fact, that was a really big breakthrough for Stan, really starting in 2013, but especially 2014 through 2016 when he got those Djokovic wins, where Wawrinka really trusted his fitness and his lateral movement and his shot tolerance got really, really good. That's kind of gone, and you could tell that Novak in that category had a big advantage against Stan in this match and was able to dominate from the baseline. And speaking of dominant from the baseline, Novak was an absolute machine off the ground in this match. I mean, it kind of cooled off in the third set and got more playable for Wawrinka, who once again just started to kind of dial in his power and taking bigger, more confident cuts and going down the line more. And part of that was, I think, because Stan, the third set was the first set that Stan served well, and that allowed him to get comfortable, and maybe the confidence from that bled into other portions of the game. But in the first and the second set, Novak was quite literally unplayable from the back of the court and borderline perfect. And with that happening, I couldn't help but notice the contrast after the Jordan Thompson match. Jordan Thompson was coming to net at every opportunity, serving, volleying on most points, and taking the rhythm out, which is a common theme, I suppose, of this video, taking the rhythm out for Djokovic and not allowing him to play his lateral baseline game, which is better than anybody else's on grass. And there was a level of disruption there. Wawrinka is not a disruptor either, by the way. He's also a rhythm player. He also hits a lot of the same balls again and again. Now, his power in itself can be, I'm just going to say it, overpowering. And then, that's why when he's in a rhythm, sometimes there's no need to get creative or have a lot of variety because the power just kind of, I would say, overrides all of it. It overrides everything. And I think that's what we saw, even against a defender in Novak, who's just as good as it gets. But I kind of digress. Wawrinka's not that guy. So Djokovic really did get comfortable from the baseline, and it was a more comfortable match than Jordan Thompson, who really came forward and just didn't let Djokovic play his baseline game, didn't let the ground strokes really come into play as much, the ground stroke chess match. In the tiebreak in the third set, Novak beats the curfew, which is key for his scheduling. Of course, getting center court matches and never getting the late match. Djokovic, despite all the rain, has been able to stay on schedule. And it stays that way mostly because he's able to win this third set and win his 10th consecutive tiebreak. Now, I think I've watched all 10, which, I don't know how you feel. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, do I need to get a life if I think I've watched all 10? But I don't know. Maybe not. I think I've watched all 10. It is kind of my job. And I think this was his worst one. He made 2 unforced errors, one of them on a drop shot, one of them on a regulation forehand. And on a second serve return, he kind of massaged one into the middle of the court, and Stan put away the +1 forehand. Just not a good second serve return. But boy, did Djokovic make up for it in the biggest of ways. Wawrinka missed back-to-back first serves, and in contrast to the second serve return that was really ineffective, which was at 3-all. Novak, by the end of the tiebreak, makes up with it with back-to-back returns deep down the middle to Wawrinka's one-hander. And Stan was rushed on both occasions. Chalk them up as forced errors. And ultimately, that sets up the victory for Djokovic, who at 6-5 makes a first serve, approaches with a forehand down the line, and finishes an overhead to seal the deal on match point. So kind of a redemption of the Djokovic second serve return, but it's really difficult for Wawrinka against Novak's returning on this surface. And a big reason why Stan has struggled on grass more than the other surfaces is because he just doesn't have as much time on the ball to load up his power, particularly on the one-hander. But that really reaches an extreme level when Djokovic is taking second serve returns early and kind of achieving a lot of depth and a lot of speed and going at Wawrinka's one-hander. And now Stan has to recover out of his serve and then prepare for a one-handed backhand. He just doesn't have the time to do it, and it's a big problem, and it's a clinical tactic from Novak. So I did want to highlight that because it was important. It beat the curfew. So that's all I got in this one. It's Hurkacz next for Novak. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.